So what the heck is a variable? We're starting our Python programming journey off early. And when someone comes to us and says, what's a variable in Python? How do you use them? What do they smell like? What do they taste like? Well, hopefully after this video, you'll have a better clue. Um, and hopefully, you'll practice and follow along with me. In algebraic variables, a variable is a letter or a symbol that represents a number whose value may change. Look at this equation down here. Y is equal to x plus 1. Y is our dependent variable. Y is dependent on the rest of our equation. X is our independent variable. Its value is independent of the rest of the equation. So we have a table of contents over here so we can track what our Y values are going to be after we do some processing, or some calculations rather. When x is equal to 1, y is equal to 2 because x is 1, 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. That's easy. When x is equal to 2, 2 plus 1 is equal to 3. When x is equal to 3, 3 plus 1 is equal to 4. So that's pretty much what a variable is in algebra. Now in Python, in the programming languages, we need variables to do things like keep track of how many lives you have in a video game. Like in Super Mario, when you get your mushroom head and you have an extra life, we have to keep track of how many lives we have, or else the game would eat itself and you would have no clue. The game would constantly think that you're dead and that you failed the mission if you have 0 lives, or it would think that you have infinite lives. Without proper variables, things can get messed up. In Python and in algebra, variables are extremely similar, except for in Python you can use different types of data types. Different variables can become different types of values. In algebra, it's all numerical. In Python, you can use letters, numbers. There's just a plethora of different types of data types that you can use. So in Python, a variable is a word that references a certain value that can change. So this value over here, let's practice writing a variable. This is just a snippet that I did earlier. Let's say we want to name a variable message, and we want to assign a bunch of words and letters to it. So when you have a variable with a value with words and letters, that's called a string, because it's a string of characters for the computer to read or print to the screen or do whatever it wants with it. So we're dealing with a string value. This variable called message has been assigned this string value, hello peoples and persons. And when we come down here to print this message to the screen, this is a command, the print command, and we want to print this message. We see that Python prints the message that we wanted to the screen because we did it correctly. So there's some different rules for using variables in Python. Variable names can only contain letters, numbers, and underscores. Variable names can only start with a letter or an underscore. So they can only contain numbers, letters, and underscores, and they can only start with letters and underscores. You can't start a variable with a number. Don't do it. Your computer will eat itself. Your computer will also eat itself if you use a reserved keyword or a function when naming your variable. So I would never name a variable print because Python already recognizes the print command for something else. If that doesn't make sense now, you have to practice. That's why you're in here typing. You're in here looking at these examples and typing these out yourself. Variable names should be short and describe their purpose. So for example, we have this new message, please stop talking already. And we have another new message 2. Oh my God, shut this guy up. These are 2 different variables. We're printing these 2 string values to the screen. And that's exactly what happens when you print new message. We'll see that it prints this really mean message, and then it prints this really mean message. So let's find out what happens if we write a variable error. Let's say we want to assign this value to this variable, the string value to this variable. So we name the variable message underscore 123, and we assign I sure hope this works as a string value. Well, when we go to print the message underscore 1234, you'll see that we got a name error. Messages are pretty cryptic sometimes. They're kind of hard to read, but all the information that you need is in there. So like we'll see the file name. If you have a file name, it'll show you what line it's in, what module, and what it'll say. It'll tell you what type of error it is. So here we have a name error. The name message underscore 1234 is not defined. That's because we defined it as message underscore 123. If I tried to print message 123, it would actually work. So to actually process our variables, to actually be able to do stuff with them, just like in algebra, we have basic arithmetic operators. Well, they're the same in Python. You got your addition, your subtraction, your multiplication, your division. For an exponent, you have your double asterisk sign. The sorts of information for my algebra, I went to OpenStax, which is amazing because they have free technical textbooks. For the programming information, I used two different books, Python Crash Course, written by Eric Matthews, the second edition, and The Math Adventures with Python, written by Peter Farrell. I will leave the information for all of these sources in the description. If you haven't already done so, we got to practice this stuff. It's important that we actually type the stuff that we're learning out. Yeah, we watched the presentation, but now we got to practice. So open up a command prompt terminal session. I'm opening mine. Now that I have mine open, I want to give it some color just to make it a little bit more fun to program with. Green and black, green on black. That's kind of like the matrix colors, hacker colors. So let's call Python, the Python interpreter. So at this point, we've learned some stuff about variables. Now let's learn how to name them and how to process data. So Nutella, I love Nutella, so I'll give it a value of 10. Bread's pretty cool too. I like putting them together. So let's learn how to add these two variables. And once again, as we learned before, all I did here was assign the value of 10 to this variable called Nutella. And I assigned the value of 5 to this variable called bread. Now, if I want to add these two variables, you can see 10 plus 5 is 15. Or if I want to subtract these two variables, 10 minus 5 is 5. There's also multiplication, 10 times 5 is 50, or there's division, 10 divided by 5 is 2, or 2.0. There's also exponents. And there's a lot of other different types of operators that we will eventually learn, but I just want to focus on the real basic ones so we can get started learning and can teach you how to practice on your own time. Let's get fancy and finish off this video with something cool. I want to show you guys how to make some cool shapes using some of the variable information that we just learned. So I like to draw shapes, we're going to need the turtle module. So from turtle, import everything. And that's all I'm doing here. We'll learn more about importing modules later on because there's so much cool stuff to learn in Python. So now that we have this turtle module imported, we want to give it a shape. So we're going to be using a turtle to draw some pretty cool shapes. And I'm going to show you guys how to do it this time. In the first video, I just did it. Now I want you guys to see. All right, so we have our window, our little turtle window, because we called the turtle shape. Now let's give it some color. Let's give the background some color. And it'll eventually look just like our command prompt. Yep, perfect. It sure does. Now when I eventually start drawing, I want the speed to be going as fast as possible. Now we can start learning how to draw shapes. We're going to use some information that we don't know yet, but you will recognize when how to use a variable here. So what I'm going to do is define a function called the polygon crafter. And it's going to have two variables inside of it that we need to give values to. The number of sides and the length of each side of the polygon. Now we're going to use a for loop to tell this function to do something in a certain amount of times. For I in range, we'll learn how to use for loops, I promise. We'll probably learn how to use for loops in the next video. So we're saying for the number of sides that are in this polygon, I want you to do something specific that many times. And what we're going to do is move forward the distance of the length of the sides. We're just constructing a shape here. That's all we're doing. And we're going to turn left. Since a polygon has 360 degrees of exterior angles, we're going to turn left 360 divided by the number of sides. And if we did everything correct, we should have a pretty cool little thing here. Let's see. I'll use a 12-sided polygon, and we'll draw it so you can see it. All right, so this turtle right here is going to start drawing a 12-sided figure. Look at that. It did. I'll make it a little bigger so you can see. Perfect. All right, now let's draw a shape. Or let's draw a square. 4, because it has 4 sides. That's the number of sides that we're calling. And now we're going to call, that's the number of sides. And the side length, we'll just say 100 pixels. You see, we got a square. We can do a bigger square. The biggest square you ever saw. There it is. Let's try a big old triangle. 3-sided polygon, and each side's going to be 300 pixels. No, 250 pixels. I don't want it to go out of screen. If you didn't see that, do it again. So yeah, we used our knowledge of variables, a for loop, and how to define a function to create something cool, and we were drawing some shapes. So that's what variables look like. That's what they smell like, and in Python at least. And I hope that you take this home and start practicing by yourself.